This is the only key that I've got for the bus, and that ain't good. Even worse, nowhere around me makes these things. So let's see if we can scrounge some stuff up to take care of that little problem. I found this thing at a warehouse rummage sale a few years ago or so and picked it up. I haven't played around with it. It looks like it's had better days, and that those days were a long time ago. But it could be made to work. About 25 years ago, I worked in a hardware store and used to use a nicer machine than this, but it's the same principle here. So we're gonna see if we can get this thing cleaned up and try to cut a key. Now, what I remember about these keys are they're not only double-sided, but they're double-sided, meaning each side is different. If you look at a modern double-sided key, they're usually symmetrical down the middle, but this one truly is double-sided. And when I ask people at hardware stores if they'd make something like this, they just kind of blink a little bit and pass out. I was able to find these blanks online. I got these on eBay. This is an L blank. Thanks to Wolfsburg West, they had some really good key information on their website, so I found the right blank for my bus. I want to clean up the mechanics of everything and make sure that it's nice and lubed, so we'll take this apart as much as makes sense. I don't think I'm going to do a restow job here and make it all pretty. Really, I just need a key. So let's make this thing functional. That'll also involve rewiring it. This is a nightmare here. That wiring is long gone, so we'll rip all of that out. But we're going to make sure it's safe. We'll mount it on here. That'll give us a place to put a new switch. I have zero confidence in the switch that's on this thing. I mean, that looks fine, but check this out. Nope, I'm not gonna play with that. I've collected some parts that I think will be handy dandy. Found this cool old faceplate that's like this thick aluminum thing. Who knows where that came from? New power cord. We should be good to go. Let's dive into this thing and see if we can get a key cut today. These little things, these little oilers are so cool. They remind me of Model Ts, but where I've really seen something like this before is on a Hammond organ. But pretty neat. I doubt this thing has been oiled in a long time, so we'll attend to that, but I love these little things. Love old mechanical stuff. It might be an oil hole too. This switch really isn't in bad shape, it just wasn't wired properly. Let's look at its ratings. It actually is 125 volt AC, 3 amps. Let's just do something a little bit nicer than this. So I'll save this for another project. Motors tell us all kinds of cool stuff on the little faceplate. 6 of a horsepower, so don't need a lot of power for this. 115 volts, and whoops, 3.8 amps. That's more than our switch can handle, so it's kind of good that we've already talked ourselves out of that switch. I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to get all of this cleaned up and rewired, but this is the loose end for me right now, is replacing this cable. So let's take this panel off and see what kind of access we have to the wiring inside, and indeed what kind of shape that wiring is in. Okay, not bad. This will be easy to replace. It'll be important to replace. That's done. So a few ring terminals here for what looks like maybe number 8 or number 10 posts, and we should be all set. This is the old power cord, and somebody just snipped off the ground instead of making use of it. Not uncommon to find that, but shame on them. That's dangerous. The ground is there for a reason, so we're going to see what we can do about that. Looking into the wiring here, the original one just had this 2-conductor cable. That would be the hot and the neutral, the black and the white, respectively. It looks like there's evidence of an old ground up here. So I want to dig a little deeper to make sure I understand this motor, and I want to hook it up such that we have a hot, a neutral, and a ground to the case of the motor. That way we'll be nice and safe and we won't burn anything up. So let's dive in over on this side, see if there's anything useful to find. Nope. Nothing at all. Okay, so let's just put that back on. I still kind of want to have a little bit closer of a look here. There's a scalloped area here on the axle shaft that the little clip held on to, but I think there might be a bit of a burr raised on that edge. So before I slide this bushing over it and tear the bushing all up, I'm going to see if I can lower that burr a little bit to get it out of the way. I can see it right here. I don't think it's much, just a little material. Yeah, that's aluminum, very soft. I'll get this cleaned up and re-oiled. Okay, I am comfortable saying now that these color codes here within the motor internally are unique to the motor. Oh, there's the brake. Looks like it's a magnetic brake. Look up Lenz's law. Neat. This little hole we saw in the top is indeed an oiler. The oil goes down through that drilling and gets wicked up by a little piece of felt here. You can see the back of that drilling where there's space cast for it in this end cap. There's also felt all around this. I think this little cup here is designed to contain that oil because it seemed like it was a light oil that was in there. This is all pretty typical, I'm sure, for motors of this type, but I'm kind of discovering and thought I'd share it with you there. But kind of neat. So that's an oiler. I'll need to stay on top of that. Kind of neat to see how stuff works. All right, let's put this thing back together. Hopefully we don't end up with any extra parts. Here's the little divots that slip into those crescent-shaped grooves in that shaft. So I want to make sure I get that lined up here. After all of that, I started cleaning up that cover for the electrical area, and I found this. It basically tells me about lubrication and how to get the end cap off all the way down to that little locking tab that we found. So if I just read a little bit, that would have been a lot easier. And on the other side, there's a little diagram showing us the electrical details. The short version is we're up here. The white and green wires used to be yellow and blue. We're in good shape. I'll just ground the case and we'll be all set. Let's take a closer look at this. Get familiar with it. This is the vise here. I don't know if that's what they call it or not, but you hold the original key in this one, and this follows the contour of that key. And then you hold the new key, the blank, in this one, and that's what gets cut by this cutter here. These things last a long time. I remember that from the hardware store. Everything is pretty much non-adjustable except for this part, and this is the depth. This would be to make sure that the grooves on the original key are lined up with the cutter. It looks like it's serviceable. I'll loosen this and then advance or retract the follower thingy with this screw here, but I'm going to assume that it's not too bad. That'll be our starting point. So I'm going to leave that as it is. This is how you set the keys in place. There's a shoulder on the key that lines up with it. Now I don't want to scoot this back and forth too much because I want it to stay tight, and there's a lot of rust on the end over here, so I'm going to wire brush this rust off before I draw it through this bore here. I am going to go ahead and take this out fully, if I can. I think I can. So I can clean all of this out and re-lubricate everything. And once that much of it is disassembled, we'll throw all of this in the parts washer and get it cleaned up. I was kind of hoping this one would loosen up, but it didn't. This is not going well. So I broke down and picked up one of these wobble impact sockets, hoping that I could slip it on here, but it actually doesn't quite fit. Not from this angle over here, not from this angle over here, but I think this is where it has its best chance, and we can get more clearance for it if we take off this gauge here. So what I'm going to do is mark it so I can get it right back where it is now. And you know, I should probably clean that up anyway. Well, let's try it. It's not very great, but we'll try it. Wow. I've become too concerned about destroying all of this part with all the stress of what I've been doing. So I'm going to stop there. I still need to get this nut off of here so I can change this blade someday, and I really want to do all this cleaning right. So we're going to cut the nut to try and relieve some stress in there. Maybe that'll loosen it up enough to pull it off if I can get it cut well enough without destroying anything else. The question is what to replace it with. This is the nut from the other side. That's a 1/2 inch, but it's a fine thread. I happen to have an old 1/2 inch lug nut. It needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but that's a 1/2 inch fine thread. Maybe I'll flatten the top here, this tapered part that makes it a lug nut. Maybe I'll grind that down, but I've got a replacement for that nut. So let's just go ahead and cut this off. That way we don't destroy anything else and we can continue with our project like we want to. I can't cut it straight across because there won't be anywhere for the blade to go. So I'm going to cut diagonally like this so there's some relief for the blade. That way I can still cut from one side to the next, even though it's going to be a little bit longer than if I cut this way. Now we're getting somewhere. The bolt is just unwrapping off of the shaft. Wow. What do you bet this is a reverse thread? Sure, cool. All right, look at that. Well, now I'm in trouble because I don't have a reverse fine thread 1/2 inch nut. At least I didn't mess up the threads, so that's good. But I do need to figure out what I'm going to do about this. That's not good. I won't tell anybody if you don't. Through all of that drama, I messed this thing up a bit with the pipe wrench. That's just kind of what they do. So let's clean this up here. I'm going to go ahead and hook the motor up just to run this and hold a file on the messed up area there. Then we'll be able to slide this off, do whatever cleaning we can, and move on. anybody wondering about the grounding here, first of all, good for you. Secondly, the switch will be grounded through the box. You'll notice that the ground screw is in the yoke or the frame of the device, and that's touching the box. Now it is important to remove at least one of these retainers here. It's permissible to leave one of them. Last time I read the code, I like to remove both of them, because why not? But there you go. The switch will be grounded through the box that has been grounded through the wiring. I would also say do your own research, of course. So we have a collision here. This screw is hitting the clamp down here. That's kind of a thing. So I'm going to find some smaller number 6 32 thread screws than that. Okay, let's see if we can cut a key. So how cool is this? I think we have a key machine. We're about to find out for sure. I kind of need to make this work, so we'll see if we can remember how to put the keys in this thing and get them all lined up correctly. It's a pretty simple process, but I don't want to mess it up because I don't have a lot of extra tries. And I'm hoping that this adjustment is correct. I think we can check that with a couple of blanks here, so maybe we should start with that. I want to make sure I get clamped into the flat parts. You might be able to see a taper here, so I want it to be a little bit further up in the vise. Let's say about right there. I'll put this one in here a little bit back, and then that's where this comes in. So supposedly this mark and this mark is the distance between this follower and this blade. So from here all the way over to here, I measure 3 inches right on it, and from cutting edge of the blade to the follower, I measure 3 inches. I think the trick was to use that thing to hold everything down. There we are, shoulder to shoulder. All right, so if the follower is gauging off of this key, I want the blade to be in the same spot for a completed key. If this adjustment isn't right, then we'll cut shallow or too deep. That actually looks shallow to me. I see some daylight here in between the key and the cutter. I don't think that's going to be deep enough. So let's fix that. That seems to be following faithfully here, so I'm ready to try that. Let's put the real deal in. That's a familiar sound. Okay, now we got to get it to work again on the other side. Like we saw, these are actually double-sided. The two sides are different. There is not much to grab onto. No shoulder over here on the original. Well, that's interesting. So in this case, I think we go off of the tips, but I can't get all the way over there. So since this gauge is not going to work for me at all, there's just nothing, I can't use this. But this is all about getting the keys to line up with the follower and the cutter, so maybe I could just use the tips on those points. That does appear to be lined up reasonably well. Let's try it. It felt like that cut a little deep. It looks like the new key is skinnier, so this may not work, but let's try it. Huh. Well, I think we did it. We got a new key. Not bad. So I guess I'll keep it. Get it? I'll keep it. Oh, keep it. That one was for free, folks. You're welcome. While I'm at it, I think I'll go ahead and cut another. This time I'm gonna do the other side first because there was so little to grab onto. So I'm gonna grab onto that little spot before it gets cut. This is good news. Now I don't have to worry so much about losing the one key I've got. If you haven't already done so, be sure to check out Project Vandemic from the beginning. Totally bingeable content, so start at the beginning, watch all the way through. You won't be disappointed. We had a great time putting that thing on the road, and now we're having fun keeping it on the road. Next up, we're going to be getting back into Dweezil, so if you haven't caught up on the Dweezil project, go back and take a look at those too. We're gonna resume with the metalwork where things had stopped, and honestly, I've got to get everybody caught up on some things that happened in between. So lots more coming with the Dweezil project really soon. Can't wait to see you again. Go over and check out those earlier videos, and I'll see you in the next one.